Good morning. Maybe today I have the camera set better. Uh, anyway, I have a story to tell. No wonder. Yesterday was Wednesday. That's the day I try on a regular basis, routine basis, to go to Roaring Spring. And I think there are always going to be uh, some debriefing to do from those trips. Uh, but this may be not of the there's lots I could say, lots, but this may not seem all that dramatic, but in a way it was. Yesterday was the day I started using my informant for the language Pennsylvania Dutch. Now, I had posted videos about how I managed to find this informant. He's an 81-year-old man named Mervin. And as I'd said in the video before, I found him because I stopped my car in front of his horse and buggy in Roaring Spring and walked back and talked to him. His wife was there too. Her name is Laura. Well, I had called them. He gave me his phone number, landline, and told me when best to call. And I called to confirm that I was coming. That was Tuesday night at 7. That was the best time to call. And so it was all confirmed. And one of the things he had said earlier is that I might have some trouble getting up his lane if I tried to go to his house. He'd said that when we were talking in person on the street. And I said I'd walk. I'd walk. Because that's how much I want to be able to have somebody to help me learn Pennsylvania Dutch. Well, I went into Roaring Spring and came back. I had a bunch of stuff to do, and I've always got this deadline of getting back to the farm in time to take care of my animals. So I did some stuff early and then came back to where his lane goes off. And anyway, started up the lane, and it had been plowed, sort of. But it had also gotten a little bit mushy because the weather was warmer. That's no problem for him because he has no car. He's got a horse and buggy. But a neighbor of his had opened a lane up for him. There's a farm up above it. So anyway, I started up. I could see the house, and I started up, and I thought, whoa, it's not it wasn't steep at all, but it was really slippy, and we say slippy. I guess most people would say slippery, but I thought, well, I'll go as far as I can, and sure enough, before long, I started to slip. I don't have four-wheel drive in the car, and I tried a couple more times, and I realized nope, and the back end started to slide around, and I thought I'm going to go off into the ditch on one side or the other. I better just stop. So I did. I was about 10 minutes early. I wanted to be right on time, 2 o'clock. But I did just as I said I would. I walked. I left the car there. It was only about 300 yards, maybe not that, 200 yards to his house and barns and stuff. And I walked up there carrying my clipboard, because no matter what, I wanted to use his knowledge. And when I got up there, he was waiting. He saw me coming, walking, and came to the door and invited me in. And that's a thrill to me anyway, just to be able to go into a Mennonite's home, just to see what it's like. Very, very sparse, very empty, as clean as it could possibly be. But when I went in the door, I said, I better take my shoes off. And he was going to let me come over to the kitchen table, I guess, with my shoes on. I said, I don't think so. He was in his stocking feet, and I said, I don't think so. You're in your stocking feet. I think I'd like to take my shoes off, and I did. And we went over, and his wife was there sitting on the couch, Laura, and the whole time we did this talking, she was knitting. She did chime in once or twice because, of course, she speaks both English and Pennsylvania Dutch as well. Well, I sat there, and it wasn't really quite as light as I wanted. I wondered if he could turn the light on so I could have a little bit more light to write. And he said, "Oh, you want more light?" and he pulled out his lighter and you know, struck a gas light. They don't have electric lighting in that house. It was a gas light, but that was pretty bright light. It was right over the kitchen table. It was pretty bright light, and I said, yeah, that's much better. Well, anyway, it was of course all a little strange because I'll sometime tell him that there's that German expression, aller Anfangs ist schwer. No, aller Anfang ist schwer. I've got to be careful of my German is going to get mixed up here some with Pennsylvania Dutch. But anyway, I went through we started up and I went through and I said, well, you know, how do you say, and what was the first thing I said? How do you say, excuse me, or like, pardon me, because it was going to be a conversation of an English, that's me, going up to a Pennsylvania Dutch person, a Mennonite or an Amish, and asking for help with the language. Just pretty much exactly what happened in the street. And right away he said, it puzzled him. And I tried to explain, well, you know, it's just a polite thing to do. You know, if I really want this conversation to be super polite, and you know, excuse me for bothering you, but we might say in English, being super polite, strangers. But he said, well, he guessed they'd probably say, excuse me. He didn't really have a way, pardonnez-moi, in French it would be, and there's one of my languages, I can't think which it is, German I think, where there's two ways of saying that. One, if you've done something wrong, pardon me, and the other, just for interrupting. Anyway, so it was going to go slow, but he finally, I said, well, okay, we'll just say, excuse me. And then I said, oh, I didn't write my English down. So I wrote this as if I already could speak Pennsylvania Dutch. And so I said to him, wie bist du? I asked him, how would you say, how are you, or what would a Mennonite say? And he said, well, probably they'd say, wie bist du? Now, I'm writing this down, and you couldn't read, well, you could read, if you really struggled, you could read it, but not because of my writing, because I was using my spelling system, which is called Artalk Writing. And so whatever I heard, I could write my spelling system, even if I didn't know what it meant, or what it exactly meant, but I could get it recorded, and that's what I did. And it was going slow, and I would say it, and he'd have to coach me on how I was saying it, because the sounds are just a little bit different. My hearing anymore is not the very best. And it was as the hour went on, he realized he had to articulate very carefully for me to get it. And there was at least one sound that he finally shook his head and smiled. He said, "You don't have a Dutch tongue." Meaning, my mouth can't make that sound. But only once. The rest of it, and at the end of it, after an hour, I said, well, I'm going to go and read through this conversation. And I read through it, and he listened, and he said, yes, that a Pennsylvania Dutch speaker would understand what you said. Success. But anyway, I said, and you know, at one point I said, is this getting long for you? Because it was getting long for me. I was having to think so hard and to listen so hard. He said, no, it's only 20 minutes. We said an hour. But then so I finally used it all. And I'll tell you about that later. But then leaving, I said, well, I've got to deal with my car down there. It's stuck. I might have to borrow a shovel. And he said, no, we'll go down. We'll go down together. And he got a shovel, And we walked down, and on the way down, then speaking English, the work was over. I was asking him about, how long he lived there, what did he do. Turns out he was a cabinet maker, and as well as farmer, and he has a wood shop of his own right there. And I got real interested in that, and he got interested too, partly that I was interested, but that I also had been a carpenter and that I had all kinds of tools. And he said, "Oh, you do?" And so and we got down there, and he was pretty skilled with getting a little bit of gravel, putting it under the tires, getting forward, going back, and then I finally backed my way the whole way out, waved goodbye, and on I went. Forgot to pay him, but I called him from my sister's house and said, "I forgot to pay you," and I didn't dare go back up the lane. And he said, we'll get you next time. So it has begun, and next time I won't be telling about the adventure. I'll be starting to teach you Pennsylvania Dutch. Bye for now.